So folks, one more topic today. I love all the applause. Look, you got applause from every single person here. So one last and very important topic from today. We're going to hear from Adam Morris from Cesium, part of Bentley Systems, on Gaussian Splats interoperable with with glTF and USD. So Adam, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this works this time. Yep, I think you guys can see it. Perfect.
We can see it.
All right, I'm Adam Morris. I've been working on primarily 3D Gaussian splatting for glTF. I've started to get involved with the emerging geometry interest group within AOUSD as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about USD and glTF interoperability in terms of 3D Gaussian splatting. So just a quick summary of what 3D Gaussian splatting is. It's an efficient radiance field reconstruction method. Basically, we use a sparse cloud of volumetric 3D Gaussians to represent splats in a scene. Spherical harmonics are then used for view-dependent lighting. And this allows for 3D Gaussian splatting to represent non-Lambertian effects like specular. So first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the OpenUSD world of things. And so far there's been two proposals, one from Apple and one from NVIDIA, and there's kind of a convergence going on, bringing those two proposals together. And where the groups have set up right now is basically a particle field schemas. So basically the idea is that particle field is a container prim for a field of particles. It extends the USD geom gprim or USD geom imageable. That's still being decided. There's open field hints for sorting and projection modes, and then we've got relationships to kernel prim and prims defining particle attributes. Kernels basically define a particle kernel, and so what this does is this is going to allow for future extensibility, and you can store radii, fall-offs, cut-offs, whatever you need for that kernel. You'll be able to actually store that within those kernel schemas. And then there's Radiance, which is just a simple container providing a relationship to the harmonics model, and then we've got the harmonics base, which provides a base for radiance models. And there is a spherical harmonics schema that is currently using this. And thank you to NVIDIA for allowing me to share this. But kind of the particle field long-term vision right now is something like this. And this diagram was provided with the NVIDIA proposal. And there have been some small changes here. Positions, quaternions, scales, all of those have already been moved up, back up to particle field.
Adam,
And so the idea is, oh, somebody say something?
I don't think your slides are progressing. At least they're not for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're on a 3D Gaussian splatting summary slide.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. All right. You know what, Patrick, do you mind sharing the slide deck then? Because I
Sure.
think Pipewire is screwed up.
All right. So Adam, just tell me what slide you want me on.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. And so I'll just kind of briefly go through. So yeah, converging proposals. Next slide. And then yeah, the particle field schemas, everything that I just kind of talked about. That's the idea here. Next slide. Okay, and so yeah, this is the particle field long-term vision, and thank you again, NVIDIA, for letting me share this and everything. And yeah, positions, quaternions, and scales, they've already been moved up to the particle field here. The idea here is each one of these boxes kind of references different schemas, and then different attributes within the schemas, the inner boxes. And the blue pieces here are kind of like, hey, like this is stuff that is likely to come in the future that nobody's really working on much. So, or people are working on it rather, but it's things that aren't settled and such. So, You've got your standard things for ellipsoid. You've got fall-off thresholds, densities, and circular harmonics and everything. So next slide, please. And so in contrast with the KHR Gaussian splatting extension, what we're doing is we're trying to take a approach where we are focused more on purely Gaussian splatting right now, and we're using point primitives and trying to make this in a way that works really well with the glTF ecosystem and supports graceful fallback. The good news is that that's not actually hurting interoperability or anything. So that's kind of, I think, the good news. And so with this extension, the primitives basically rely on base glTF specs attributes for position, diffuse color, opacity, which we've encoded into the color alpha channel for fallback purposes. And then the extension defines additional attributes for rotation scale and the spherical harmonic coefficients. The spherical harmonics are optional, so in the future, when different lighting methods come, and if you've got PBR, for example, in the future with Gaussian splats, you'll be able to just ignore those. They're completely optional, and then include the PBR stuff. And then we've got some optional rendering hints that are similar to some of the stuff that is in the wider schema graph of OpenUSD, and that's kernel type, sorting method, projection method. All of these hints have kind of what we believe to be sensible defaults for today. It's a point in time thing, and they're all extensible. So, some of the things, such as like kernel type, we're using an ellipse, and the idea is that that's based on the ellipse from the original paper. It's got a metal-lobus distance of 3, and the idea is that that's going to be extensible because ultimately we know that there are gaps for that, for like when you get to ray tracers and that sort of stuff, and things are going to change over time. So this extension is all about providing a basic foundation. And next slide, Patrick. And so that's the idea with this, is that we've got this whole extensibility first idea here. We've got compression extensions. There's an SPZ extension, for example. We're hoping that somebody is working on a SOGS extension. We do know that Play Canvas asked about it, but I don't know where they are with that right now. And then kernel extensions are basically the idea that we know that things like ellipses, we know that there could be triangles in the future. There's all sorts of things that are kind of very early day today. And the idea is that by putting those kernels into an extension, you allow them to also actually include any of the attributes that they may need for densities, cutoffs, values, and all of that sort of thing. And our hope is that by also making it so that these are extensions, that we limit fragmentation, and we basically kind of have a kind of strictness to it where if folks are moving in a current direction, then somebody will open an extension, and then we'll be able to well define those kernels. Next slide. And so again, this is all about providing a foundation for the future. We've got decode basically ideas for different compression extensions as needed. There'll be future extended baseline extensions, such as different kernels and that sort of stuff. And the idea is that we do want to kind of still keep this on the glTF side, GPU ready where we can. So that means that the position, the covariance, the opacity, and all of that stuff is stable, even as Gaussian splatting and splatting in general evolves. So next slide. And so I do have this little video because we're actually at a point where we actually have several people in production with this today, including us at Cesium. And so we've got a little video of it in action here. So next slide. And yeah, and so ultimately the idea, and this has been really important to me, is that we keep these interoperable and compatible. And so the idea is that I've been working closely with the OpenUSD folks, and to the point where I'm now actually joining the emerging geometry interest group. And just doing what we can to actually make sure that we've got easy interop as in as much places as possible. So this chart here, this kind of shows basically the different core properties. We've got different kernel definitions and rendering hints and such. And we want to keep these, the interop again, between these two relatively easy where we can. So like sorting methods and projection methods, we want to kind of try to keep them uniform. There are some things though, because ultimately, like as with all USD and glTF interop, we realize that perfect interop is impossible and probably the enemy of good. So we are looking for good interop, not perfect interop. So some things like USD time samples just aren't in scope today. So, and yeah, next slide. And so, yeah, thank you. So we're hoping that this makes for an interoperable 3D Gaussian splatting future. And we're really interested to hear feedback from everyone and thoughts and concerns. So thank you.
Very nice. Let's do a round of applause for Adam. And then we have like 8 minutes for Q&A for the official meeting, but then we can roll into water cooler for splats or anything else. So who has the first question? Or comment? So look, I like the spirit of Adam's presentation here where, we want to advance Gaussian splats in a way where there's going to be a reasonable interop between glTF and USD. And it looks like this is a good path forward. Do folks agree?
Yeah, actually, I love to see I love to see the interaction here, Patrick. I think the main question that still bugs me a little bit as a standards guy is standards is always a lagging activity. So at what point do these things go in to actually become standards? And if at that point is there enough settled, or is the state of the art still moving too fast for us to actually make these decisions, either in glTF or USD? It's the reason why emerging geometry is an interest group in AOUSD, right? Pre-standardization activities, discussions. I'm just kind of curious what everybody thinks as to, with everything moving so quickly, what's the time frame that we think we'll get to a point where we're LTS kind of stable to be able to put it in standards?
So yeah, that's a great question, Guy. And I'm glad you brought it up because ultimately what we've been looking at, especially within the glTF working group, is that this is providing a stepping stone, that base extension. So we know that there is going to be future state of the art that is going to be a little bit different than what we have today. We do know that there is basically kind of what we've seen and what we've realized is that there is actually a basis right now based on that reference implementation where there are people, actually a lot of people, surprisingly, who have shipped basically these reference implementations. So by targeting that basis of that reference original paper and then making sure that we have all of the hatches that we need to have to actually extend later and evolve with Gaussian splatting, we feel like we're kind of in a place where we can probably start getting close to a release candidacy state for the base extension very soon, we're hoping. And then in the future, as things change, we'll introduce those additional extensions and such to actually evolve. Basically, the way to think about it is like PNG versus JPEG. Well, PNG came later. And yeah, there are some things that are really great about PNG, but everybody, there's still a lot of people who JPEG is good enough for their needs. And that's really what we're trying to enable, is allow those people who have those early needs with JPEG, allow them to use that. And then the people with PNG, they'll be able to use it later, and we'll be able to actually have some kind of convergence between the two.
Cool. Yeah, that makes total sense. Thanks, Adam, for the answer. And obviously that's from the glTF perspective. So now I'm looking at my friends from Pixar and I know Shannon from NVIDIA has been working on this on the USD side. I think because just the nature of the standardization process for OpenUSD being obviously behind where you folks are for glTF, we're kind of looking to you to lead the way there. But I do think that we're going to have to sort of think what this looks like, in terms of sample or reference implementations in OpenUSD, Nick, as we start to think about what this looks like in the standard potentially on USD.
I too would like to see a standard reference implementation of a renderer. Can I just say that?
Sure, you can say that.
We really do need it, and we need it under licenses that allow innovation and forking and change, and aren't restricted to academia or other silos where reference implementations currently live.
Yeah, that has been a topic of discussion at the interest group. So we know it's going to part and parcel with getting something out there as a standard. So there have been some discussions started about where, like, who has code we can start from to get to a standard reference implementation.
Yeah, I think we need a starting point. Mike?
Cool, can I jump in? Yeah, so I have a question that's maybe a little related. I've been using Cesium recently, and so you guys have a implementation, which is awesome to see. I was curious if it, or if there are plans for like the 3D tiles integration. Like I've noticed for one of the splats I put, it was split into like 4 logical glTF like separate models. But you guys also have like a way to, if you zoom out far enough, like compress those points into like a single point, right? Does that like LOD system exist, or like kind of the BHV trees that like 3D tiles use? Like, do you guys have something similar conceptually in the works?
Yes, hierarchical level of detail with Gaussian splatting in 3D tiles is being worked on actively. We have the folks from iTwin Capture working on it primarily, and yeah, I mean that's something that's I know that they're very, very hard working on it. So
Awesome. Yeah, I think that'll
Yeah.
really be helpful and unlocks a lot of things, and it kind of fits in with what I've been learning about 3D tiles. So yeah, good to see. And thanks again for the implementation, because I've been finding it helpful to be able to plop down splats of scans that I've made on the
I'm
Earth.
happy to hear that.
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks.
Good discussion. Other topics, questions around splats? Adam, was there any input or feedback you were looking for that you haven't gotten?
No, I don't think anything in particular. I think that there's maybe needs to be, at least in the glTF space. I think many of us, we do want to try to start the conversation with those who are working on the ray tracers and stuff, and we've kind of already started this conversation, but to actually start to put together what that kind of more ellipsoid, larger implementation of a kernel for their needs actually looks like. It's probably good to start that conversation and start that development sooner than later. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I suppose kind of related. So the current proposal, or the current extension, has a lot of the things already actually that would allow me to take like this sort of format and implement it in a ray tracer. But one open question I suppose I had is if there's any like plans to consider a normal distribution to go alongside the kernel distribution. With the ray tracer, when we're tracing secondary rays, we need some kind of means of determining, what the normal of the ellipsoid is to reflect across. And I was wondering if I could somehow extend a kernel to do this, if that would be future proof enough.
Yeah, I think that's the idea, and I'm sorry, Nate, if I haven't been clear to you with that, because I know we've been talking back and forth on GitHub. But yeah, the idea is that when you make a kernel, you'll actually still be able to define, say that you need different attributes, you'll be able to define those attributes as well. So you can actually have that data packed away in a buffer as you would in a glTF. So if you need densities or if you need a big list of fall offs or something, you'll be able to do that. Absolutely.
Nice. I guess then the other main question, I guess, is that, like, I'd love to convert all my assets over to this format and implement an importer. I was wondering if there's a reference that I could look at. Is that where kind of looking into Cesium might be useful, or?
Yeah, for the client side, we don't currently have publicly an open source tool for generating these. It's worth mentioning that I know that I've talked to Don McCurdy a little bit. He's the person behind glTF transform, glTF transform, a great CLI tool, and he wants to actually implement something. I don't know where it is right now though. I'd be willing to talk with you though as much as I can. So why don't we talk? Yeah,
Okay,
I'll send you an email.
All right, folks. So I see it's just after the top of the hour. So let's do one more round of applause for Nick and Adam for their presentations today. Lots of applause. So folks, we'll end the official meeting in just a moment here, but then if you want to stay on for water cooler, please do.